oh, it's a few years back now, just before lockdown, I think it was. The father of the groom wanted me to do this trick for him. So I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Right on the name, blah, 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 usual sort of thing. And I named the name of the dog that was his dog. And he burst into tears. I mean, this was a guy that towered over me. He must have been 6'4", something like that, and probably nearly as wide as well. The guy was huge, and he just burst into tears and gave me the biggest hug in the world, nearly crushed me. And the reason for it is because I'd named the name of this dog that he had as a kid. So to him, it was a really special moment. And I think if you're doing mentalism, if you can make it personal, you can't beat it. It's just an amazing reaction you get from people. You know, anything that can do a personal moment is important.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. A guest is waiting to be marooned on his island. Now, today's guest is sort of a prolific creator of magic at this point. He's created some really clever pieces of magic over the past couple of years. Now, if you see the quality of his effects as well, he really does put an awful lot of time and respect into the effects that he creates. Most recently, Imposter was a really, really clever way to do a Karasuke style routine, and I know that he builds and creates so many different tricks. He's also a Penn and Teller Fooler with his wonderful trick, which is in my close-up case. He knows it's in my close-up case. I have both versions of his book as well, called the Baby Book. I cannot praise him highly enough. Not only that, but he's super, super lovely. He's one of the nicest people that you'll meet in our industry. And if you get the chance to see him at a convention or book him for a lecture or any of the other places you can find him, make sure you go up to him because you will not be disappointed. So, of course, today's guest, by looking at the title, is Mr. John Morton. Hello, John.
Hello, that was an amazing intro. Checks in the post, mate.
I'd be rich now if everyone paid me for the introductions.
Yeah.
That's good. But it's all very, very true. Obviously, everyone knows you for your incredible creations, but more the quality that you put into your routines as well.
Yeah, the thing is, I think because I set myself certain rules for everything I release, has to be simple, has to be beginner up to pro level, but still strong enough for a pro to work. And I put lots of constraints on how it has to be no memory work, almost self-working, means it's open for everybody, and no electronics too, which is sort of another thing I've kind of added into the list, which is why Imposter was a year and a half in the making of, really, to be honest, to get it to the level it was at.
And it was wonderful, though, because it's such a good quality effect.
Wait till Blackpool.
Well, I've seen a prototype of another trick that you know I love as well.
Yeah, that's the one that's going to be under the table that not many people know about. That's the one they have to come and ask me, what's under the table?
Wait there, we should give them a little code word so that they know they've listened to this, and that's why they've come to the table. What code word could we give them?
Let's just, they could say matchbox.
Matchbox. All right, so if you've listened to this and you want to see the trick, John's only going to have them under the table.
And
so
go
there and say matchbox.
There'll only be literally a handful.
And I'm taking one. John knows I'm going straight there.
Yes, you've got one, mate. Don't worry, the bonus I've
It's great. So, with that being said, let's get into the concept of the podcast. If this is your first time listening, the idea is that we're about to maroon John onto his own island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Particulars like who's there, are there animals there, is there an audience, is there a boat, all of that good stuff, we do not mind. It is all in John's imagination. With that being said, let's find out what he has in his list. He's reassured me that he has some very, very good tricks in there. So let's find out what's in his first position.
Right, I didn't think this was going to be hard to organise this list. And I bet everybody says this. And it's funny, everybody should do this as a sort of process, is go through and look at all the different things that they have. And I realised I have certain plots that I fall into where I do the same trick, essentially, but in a different style. And I'm kind of obsessed with different plots. So I'm not going to start with any of those plots first, though. I'm going to start with my favourite trick, the one trick I could not live without, and that is Inside Out by Pro Mystic. But because it's hollow, it has toxic as a reveal in the end. So I actually get 2 tricks out of 1 there. So you're going to kind of sneak one in already before you even start. Look. So basically, the way I have it, it can be set up with different size. It's basically a cube. It's like a small cube. It's about, I don't know, 1 inch by inch, I suppose. You can have different colour size on it or different images, whatever you want on the sides of it. I have colours on the side of it. So I always joke that it's the smallest and the easiest Rubik's Cube in the world. And essentially, it's one of those ones where they can place it in their hand, or they put whatever colour they want on top of the cube. They cover it over, and I can read their mind and tell them what the colour on top of the cube is. The nice thing, particularly with the Inside Out cube, is you can open one side up and show that there's nothing inside. It's just a hollow plastic square cube thing, basically. So inside there, like I say, I normally have a piece of paper that has a reveal in it, which normally has the date on it. Which is that's essentially what Inside Out is, and I get so much mileage out of this. It's my opener on every single table. It's probably my favorite trick that I own, and I own 2 of them because I never want to be without it. So if one literally got stood on or whatever, I could just walk to my car and pick the other one up and carry on. It's also I know we're not allowed to talk method here. It's not rechargeable. It's the other way you could do these things, which means if it does go down you in the middle of a gig and you know it's going to because it has a strange kind of, you get a strange vibration that something's wrong, you can then fix it there and then, basically. I hope that kind of codes it as, God, Penn has a good job on Penn and Teller Fullers, doesn't he? He has to do this stuff off the cuff.
Yeah, Pro Mystic stuff is great. Now, earlier on, you mentioned that one of the criteria in creating new magic is to not make it electronic.
Correct.
So it's interesting that your first choice is an electronic item.
Yes, I used to be king of electronics. I had so many gizmos and gadgets on me, I was like Batman. But what I found is I didn't feel like a magician, not even in the slightest, because it was just, it did everything for me, and I didn't like that. So over the years, I've literally got rid of everything apart from the Inside Out. And the only reason I've got that still is because it's fully examinable. You can see it inside and out, literally. There's nothing to find. There's nothing to see. It's just a cube that's hollow, basically, which is why, and it's never, ever let me down. In 20 years, it's never let me down once. You know, if it's gone down mid-gig, it's gone down because I haven't charged, I haven't put a new battery in it, and it needs a new battery in it. So basically, I've literally just gone to the toilet, put one in, and I'm back again. So, yeah, it's 100% reliable. It's literally a workhorse for me. Every single person, every single table, it's my opener. Because the way I use Inside Out, or the way I use the cube, is essentially I will give it to people, and I'll say to them, I need to test if I can read or get into your head, basically. So this is what I use to sort of tell if I can get into your head or not. So put it on your hand, put the colour you want on top, cover it over, and then essentially read them. And then if I can get into the head, I'll be able to tell them what the colour is. And if I can't get into the head, then I won't tell them what the colour is. I'll get it wrong. Simple as. And sometimes I will get it wrong. Sometimes on purpose. So it just works really well. And the nice thing with it on a round table, if I'm doing this on a round table, because it goes round the people, as it's the opener to it, it gets everybody watching. So anybody that was chatting, I don't have to interrupt them. The person next to them will tap them and go, yeah, do this. And I explain to them what they've got to do. And then now they're paying attention without me going, you stop talking, kind of, you know. So because I'm not, it's funny because I'm not one of these guys that likes to interrupt people when they're talking, because I think it's rude. But essentially that's our job as a close-up magician. We have to go and sort of barge away into a table and sort of take over, as it were. So it's a difficult thing to do. But with this Inside Out cube, I've found that that's a nice subtle way to do it. You only need one person to pay attention, And then somebody else will see what I'm doing and go, "Oh, I want to go with that." And before you know it, it's going around the table. Now everyone's paying attention, and I'm ready. I'm good to go. And I've already figured out by it going around who the alpha male is, who's going to try and catch me out, all that kind of stuff. So by one circuit round the table, I know who's the person to avoid, who's the person that's going to love it, who's the person that's a true believer, all that kind of stuff. And then follow on with toxic at the end of it. You've got like a hell of a closer. It's almost like a master prediction thing at the end of it. It was much easier when toxic was just the old way, but toxic plus now I think is my go-to on this kind of thing. But those two sort of effects essentially, because they're really one thing in my book, because they're all collected. That's a hell of an opener. It's really strong. You read everybody and then you predict something that everybody's doing on their phone. You can't beat it as an opener. You really can't.
Yeah, it's a great choice. And Pro Mystic really are a reliable resource for that kind of trick. And those who worry about that style of trick and stay away from it because they're worried about it going down or whatever, all you do have to do is listen to the full-time work in prosa who are out there using these day in, day out, table at table at table, to know how reliable they are. They really are a very reliable routine. But it does bring us on to number 2. So what did you put in your second position?
Okay, so 2 is it's a peak. In particular, the business card peak that's on my lecture. Available Alakazam. In fact, if you watch my Alakazam lecture, you'll notice most of these tricks are probably in my lecture at some point, because I do a through my working set. And these are genuinely things I go out with. So this is the second trick I do on the table. And it's a thing where I just have a stack of business cards and I get somebody to write down the name of their first pet. And then they show everybody on the card who the first pet is. That's the reason they've written it down. It gets just thrown into the middle of my business card stack, so it's gone. And then I basically, using like a psychic hangman kind of scenario on a blank business card, work out what the name of the pet is, essentially. And usually I can tell them roughly what colour it is and what breed it is. If it's a dog or whatever, I usually get a rough idea of what the actual animal looks like too. Which, if you get that as a hit, it's incredibly strong. The nice thing with it, and you'll notice through, as I go down my list, most of it's sort of mentalism orientated. I think any effect that's like this, where it's something that's very, very personal to them, is really, really strong. I mean, to give you an example, I did a wedding a few years back now, just before lockdown, I think it was, and it was the father of the groom. Father of the groom wanted me to do this trick for him. So I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Right on the name, blah, 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 usual sort of thing. And I named the name of the dog that was his dog. And I guessed it was like a black sheepdog type of thing. And he burst into tears. I mean, this was a guy that towered over me. He must have been 6'4", something like that, and probably nearly as wide as well. It must have been like Jurassic Park when he's walking through into a room. You'll see the rings of the coffee cup kind of appear, because the guy was huge, and he just burst into tears and gave me the biggest hug in the world, nearly crushed me. And the reason for it is because I'd named the name of this dog that he had as a kid, and everybody hated this dog. It was so evil, they had to leave it in the shed. It didn't live in the house. They couldn't have it in the shed. It was too vicious. It lived in the shed. And the only person anybody go near it would be him. It protected him as a kid. So for him, he had this special bond with this dog. And it was like the two of them were just connected, whereas everybody else wasn't included in that little circle. So to him, it was a really special moment. And I think if you're doing mentalism, if you can make it personal, and especially something as strong as that, you can't beat it. It's just an amazing reaction you get from people. Anything that can do a personal moment is important.
Yeah, I think it breaks the boundaries between believability, right? Because if a card comes to the top of the deck, then one would say that that's quite clearly not magic, albeit still amazing and incredibly clever. But the idea of you being able to pluck a thought from someone or read someone's body language, there's like a believability there that could be a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did a wedding fair yesterday, and I had a lady who was convinced I was psychic, and I always shy away from that kind of conversation. But she was like, "No, you're definitely psychic." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm using statistics. I'm using psychology, and I'm using a lot of perception to try and sort of figure out what it is and make it look like I can read minds." No, you're definitely psychic, 100%. Wouldn't believe me. So I was like, "Right, fair enough, whatever." Um, so there's some people that you can't convince them. The more you deny it, the more they believe you are. Um, so I don't know. It's a funny thing. When I first started out going down the mentalism line, I wanted to have this sort of backstory that was never told to anybody, never written. But in my head, the backstory was, if I could do this stuff for real, people would be scared of me. So how would I hide that, but use it to make money to live, basically? So you'd hide it behind the sort of cover of being a magician. So the sort of untold backstory line of my character, I guess, is he can do this stuff for real, but he hides behind the image of a magician so people don't freak out and think he's a weirdo, basically. And I think the tricks I've picked over the years and the way that I present things sort of tells that without actually saying it, if you know what I mean. It's what the conclusion they seem to come to a lot of the time. And that's the difference between, I think, magic and mentalism. It's a funny one with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these guys that thinks mentalism is different to magic. We're using the same methods, we're using the same techniques. It's just presented in a different way. You know, it's a difficult one. I don't do disclaimers, but if somebody does push me on the psychic thing, I'll say that I'm using psychology and statistics and perception, things like that. You know, that's my sort of thing. Like it's one of those subjects that divides a lot of magicians. That one, I know.
Well, it's a great opening gambit. So we've got Pro Mystic and now a sort of a name reveal or business card peek. So what does that bring us in your third spot?
So my third spot is one of my own, and it's the Lego deck. Or guess it's that figures is the trick, but it's the deck of Lego minifigure cards. And it's one of those tricks I created. It was created probably because of Craig, Petty, and Ryland more than anything. Well, Ryland in particular. Craig asked me to create something for Ryland, and I created this. It was based on my Icon lottery trick, but it was done with Lego minifigures. And it was a case of they picked three figures out, and one was going to be the sort of like head, one was going to be the body, one was going to be the legs, and essentially had a prediction that it was the Lego minifigure. Basically, that was it. It was a mixed up Lego figure, and it was a stage piece, and I wanted to do it close up, so I created the Lego deck. So basically, it's a load of Lego cards. So it has a few secrets built into it, particularly around the back, that enables you to very, very easily guess who the Lego minifigures they're thinking of. And I do it with three people at once. So I get three people to just grab the deck, do what I want with it. They can shuffle it, do whatever they want. They each take out a figure that they like the look of. So there's some really wonderful ones in there, and then there's some like superheroes in there. There's like Star Wars characters in there. There's Muppets in there. You name it. There's all kinds of wonderful Lego figures. And then from that, I get them. I guess what color it is their character is, and then I guess what their character is, and it gets that reaction that you see on trailers that you always think sometimes is fake, where they run around screaming, and they do that kind of David Blaine kind of moment, which I always think, yeah, but surely that doesn't really work in the real world. It's the only trick I think that I've ever done that I've created where people literally jump up and run around screaming and want to run away and stuff. It's that strong. It's a weird one. The nice thing with it is, when we brought it out, it came with like a big long tutorial. Craig did it like, well, you know what Craig's like. It was a massive tutorial on the end of it with Ryland, so it was important for me that Ryland was on it as well. And one of the tricks that's not on there is the one I do if I'm going to do it on stage. And I've never told anybody this, I don't think, but you can do guess who with it. So what you can do is essentially you can get three people up on stage. This only works if you've got a camera, really, but three people up on stage, they each take a character, they pick one out that they like the look of. You dribble the deck down, they put the card in each time, and you spread the cards all over the table, face up. And essentially you can do a plot line similar to what Darren did when he did Guess Whom. Essentially, by asking a few questions, you can narrow it down very, very quickly to what the Lego figure is. Because by the time they put it back into the deck, you already know what it is anyway. So you're so far ahead, it's all about the presentation, which most of my tricks, to be honest, are. I don't want convoluted methods that I've got to try and remember how to knuckle busting and do some crazy move. I just want to concentrate on presentation because that's the bit that people remember. Nobody's going to go complimenting you how good your double lift is, or oh, that was a brilliant diagonal pass from the middle or whatever. They're not going to go. They're not going to do that. Magicians might, but lay people aren't. Lay people are going to go, well, I don't know how he did it. He just somehow he read my mind, and and if their presentation is engaging and fun, then it's a win-win. So yeah, Lego deck would be the one that's on my third position, which is interesting because those three items do actually have a plot line, and that's the mind reading plot, I guess. Because all three of those are essentially you choose something or name something, and I guess what it is. So, which is pure mentalism, I suppose. Well, that's where they come in.
Yeah, it's great, and it's nice that it's just a bit quirkier as well.
Yes.
Obviously, Inside Out is quirky, depending on what presentation. The business card peek is quite direct, but I guess this would level the amount of shock maybe after the business card peek if you're doing this as part of a set. So yeah, and it's great how you can get so much out of it. You can get close up and parlor pieces from that deck as well.
Yeah, well, most of the things that I've got on this list, and here's an idea for a future podcast for you. You should have a list for close-up and a list for stage, because I could have easily made you two lists here, one that covers stage and one that covers close-up. And there is a lot of tricks that blur the lines, and some of my tricks on this list very much blur the lines. You could do both. You could do stage or close-up with them, and I like tricks like that, because I think if you're going to do a trick and work it enough so you really know it well, it's helpful if that trick's able to sort of scale up, if you know what I mean, if you were having to do like a cabaret piece or something, which you could definitely do with these.
Well, it's a great opening three effects, but it does bring us nicely into number 4. So what did you put in your fourth position?
So my fourth position is probably the trick I'm best known for, certainly in the magic community anyway, and that's 21st Century Phantom. That trick, I owe a lot to this trick. It's the trick, again, is one to do every single table, a different person each time. I can cut probably about 350 different people now over the years. Oh, that reminds me. Oh, we're not on camera, are we? That's such a shame, because I cut one of you. I'll send you a picture of it later. I have a 21st Century Phantom of you. I was going to surprise you with it. Somewhere knocking around behind me. I'll dig it out and send you a picture later, mate. We'll put it on social media somewhere. But yeah, 21st Century Phantom. The biggest problem with it, I mean, if anybody doesn't know what it is, essentially, this is an old trick by Hanneman years and years ago called the President's Trick, where essentially he would get somebody to name a president and he would essentially cut a side silhouette out of that person. It was later done in the 1980s by Paul Daniels. He did Elvis on his Paul Daniels Magic Show in an A4 size. And then later on, Oz Perlman made it famous via Penguin Magic. And now through Alakazam, it's owned by Alakazam, I believe now, the rights to 21st Century Phantom. Partly due to a conversation with Peter a few years back. And it's an amazing trick where with the new version of it, the sort of 21st side of it, I suppose, is that rather than it being a side profile portrait, it's actually like a face-on silhouette of the person. So it actually looks like their face. I do this with a blank face deck that's every card's different. It's got a different name on it. And essentially, I riff down the deck and they just choose one. Essentially, they say stop. and that's the card they've gone, the person they've gone for, having a little bit of reading from that. I have a load of patter for them, and then I divine who it is, and then essentially cut the silhouettes out, and they get to keep it. And the biggest problem when it first came out, when I brought it out, was the silhouettes were a pain to cut really hard, really hard to come out. And I solved that problem a few years back with the help of a friend of mine called Jason, who's a kids entertainer, Mr. Shiny, for anybody that knows Mr. Shiny. And with the help of him, we solved that problem. And luckily for me, I'd been making silhouettes since I was 16. I just didn't realize that how handy they would come in. So for me to make these silhouettes, it's been second nature. It's very, very easy to make them. So I sometimes use several filters to get the image right. I sometimes literally go back to pen and paper and do it old school. I had to do that for Elton John, for a thing for him. There's a name drop for your clang, for a magician to present to Elton John. That took a week to do, and that I literally had to go back to pen and paper and do it proper old school for that one. But it's a brilliant trick. And since then, I've worked with several magicians around the world on different silhouette projects where it's not necessarily 21st century phantom, but it's a project where they need a phantom type silhouette. So it's built me a reputation with lay people, and it's kind of built me a reputation in the magic community as well, I guess. Because whenever anybody mentions on any of the Facebook groups that they need a silhouette of somebody, my name seems to pop up about 3 or 4 times, and then I get a phone call. So, it's a brilliant trick. Everybody should, well, no, I don't want anybody else to do it, actually. Just leave it for me. I'll be the only one that does it.
Yeah, it's a great choice. It's one that we've had before, and no doubt we will have again. It's a great effect, and it's one that when you do it, certainly I used to do it at weddings, and it just gets a phenomenal reaction, unlike anything really before it.
It is. It's just incredible, and it's probably the ultimate giveaway because you're giving away a piece of art, and it's amazing how many people that I'll bump into like months or even years ahead of time, and they bring out their phone and it's in the back of their phone case. I get that all the time, you know. It's surprising. So it's the best advert for yourself you could do, especially if you make sure there's a business card with it.
When I perform at gigs, I look at effects that tick these 3 boxes. Is it super strong and powerful? Yes. Will it last with your spectators for a lifetime? Absolutely. And does it leave them with a souvenir that perfectly captures the moment of magic? If that all sounds exactly what you're after, look no further than the liquid forks. These forks have been custom designed to be able to bend right in front of your spectators' eyes. It's so easy to perform, it's so visual, and trust me, they will honestly keep this impossible object because they've seen it morph in front of their eyes. It literally does the impossible. Not only that, Liquid Forks comes with 50 of these forks in each pack, and it comes with the full Liquid Forks routine taught by the world famous David Penn. Not only that, we have a subscription service. If you guys love these forks and you get through them at your gigs, we now offer a monthly subscription where you get sent a box through every single month at a 10% reduced fee. Like I said, you guys are going to be loving these. You're going to be performing them every chance you can. Trust me, the reactions are second to none. So guys, head over to alakazam.co.uk, pick up a set of liquid forks. You will not regret it. Easy to do. Leaves them with a killer souvenir. And to be honest with you, it's not cards, it's not coins, it's not mentalism. It's something beyond belief. Check it out now, guys, the liquid forks.
Yeah, it's a great choice, and it does bring us to your halfway line, which is number 5. So what's in your 5th position?
So, this is a tricky one now for me. Let me think. Right, okay, so I'm going to go for one. I was literally doing all day yesterday at the wedding fair, and we made a right mess, but we had a really good laugh. And that's Woody Harrigan's Love Ritual. I absolutely love this trick. And I've got a shortened down version of this. So if anybody doesn't know what it is, essentially everybody in the group. So yesterday I was at the wedding fair and we had like probably about 15 people around me in a massive crowd around us because we'd built up this crowd. And I thought, what the hell will do Woody Harrigan? So I doled out 4 cards to everybody that was stood around. And you rip the cards up, you mix them up in various different ways, which is lots of humor with it. They're throwing cards in the air, so there's cards flying everywhere. And at the end, they're left with 1 card and 1 half that they've already put away at the start, and the 2 halves match. And the magic's done in their hands, which is always the best kind of magic. If it's something that they do themselves but they don't know how, I think it's just incredibly strong. And I do this close up at tables, and I do it stage, and I've done it literally for a whole wedding party before, which goes really, really well. If you do this at a wedding, I mean, the venue hate you because there's cards everywhere, but you should have seen the mess at the wedding fair last night. I did take a picture of it actually at the end of the day. It was really tidy at the start. By the end of it, there was silhouette cuttings everywhere and half cards all around my area. But I'll tell you one thing though, and this was a learning curve for me at the wedding fair, because I did the Woody Harrigan trick halfway through the day, and then we kept getting groups coming up to us going, what's this, what's this? And they were asking what the cards were on the floor. And that got me instantly straight into doing some more magic and getting bigger crowds. And then we'd do Woody Harrigan at the end of it, which brought even more people in because they saw all these cards flying everywhere. I never thought doing that at a wedding fair was a good idea, but it's going to be something I'll carry on doing from now on because, it makes a hell of a mess. I might have to take a sweeping brush with me from now on for the end, but it was worth it. It really was. The crowds were massive and the response was phenomenal. And off the back of it, we got 5 bookings on the day straight away. And I've already had more inquiries coming through on my email. So, yeah, I think it showed that you can do something bigger than just the small close-up stuff as well. So, yeah, definitely. Woody Harrigan's Love Ritual, it's by far one of the best tricks out there that covers both close-up and stage. But you do need to cut it down. Don't make it so complicated. Work on simplifying it, because when they're drunk at a wedding, they won't follow all the rules that Woody Harrigan puts into it. The phases I've cut down quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a great choice. I mean, any trick that Penn and Teller put into their stage show, like they did several years ago, it was a standout moment. But what was lovely is if you do that sort of effect in a large room, like you just mentioned, a wedding room or even a small theatre, seeing all of those cards throw up in the air, it was one of the tricks as well that got me through the pandemic doing virtual shows. I did it with I had like a pack that I sent out to all of the guests, and they had really beautiful postcards which they tore up, and then of course one matched. So yeah, it's such a wonderful trick. It's such a great routine, and your idea of doing it at a in a wedding room with lots of people throwing it over their head, like almost like confetti, I guess, I think it'd look great.
It does. It's got that, like when the singing waiters do that thing where they wave like a serviette over your heads. It's got that kind of thing about if they film it, there's all these cards going up every time, like confetti. It's got a really good visual moment for the sort of video guys to capture, And if the photographer's there, obviously he catches all the cards going up in the air. It just looks great. The weird thing with it is it's such a hard thing to follow, because the moment it goes right, everybody instantly starts talking to everybody. You can't shut them up for about 5 minutes. So in my stage show, I do this in my stage show, and it's the end of my act in my stage show, because you can't follow it afterwards because they just won't show up. A bit like me on this podcast.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a good trick and a great choice. But it does bring us to number 6. So what did you put in your 6th position?
Right, 6th position. Okay, so let me think, what should we do for the 6th one? I've got these. They're not necessarily in the order, apart from inside out of the start. I'll go for one that's a bit predictable. It's been named 100 times already. It's probably number 1 on your list of getting up that way. And that's Stand Up Monte by Garrett Thomas. It's a 3-card Monte plot. It's done in the hand, except I don't do it in the hand. I mix it with a traditional Monte plot on the table. So it looks very different to Stand Up Monte. Lots of interaction, lots of comedy in it. And it's an absolute gold mine for me, that trick. When Inferno, I've built a crowd, I'll do stand up Monty. After I've already done the mind reading tricks, I'll go into this because it shows I can do cards. I do it. I explain that this is a con. Don't ever play this game if you see it on the streets. I'm going to lie and cheat all the way through it, which is a lovely moment. It's got. I really like that plot that Darren does in one of his shows where he says where he's doing mediumship and he's going. So your grandma's here and she's telling me this and she isn't because I'm lying to you. And I like that contrast where he's sort of saying the performance, but then explain that he's lying. It's all rubbish. So I do the same with this. I explain I'm playing this game, but I'm lying to you. I'm cheating all the way through it. Don't trust me, And I like that contrast of really messing with their heads a bit. So yeah, stand up Monty, Garrett Thomas. I know it's been named 100 times, which is quite boring because it's got to be high up on your list by now. But it's just brilliant. Everybody should learn it. It took me a month to learn. And it's still one of the sort of go-to tricks I always do in my set. If I've got a table, I'll do it. I don't tend to do it in the hand. I've seen people do it in the hand, do it a lot better than I do. I know that's traditional way, but for me, I like it on the table just because it's got such amazing moments of magic in it. It really has. And I've got lots of comedy bits I've added into it at the start, which throw them for a loop at the start as well, so they never quite know what's happening. So yeah, Stand Up Monty, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, it has been named quite a few times at this point, but you are the first person to say that they do it on the table.
Oh, so, that's good. At least I've got something new to it then.
Well, I think that's a really interesting thought because, of course, it is a routine. The whole point of the routine, I presume, was it was created to be an in-the-hands version of the Monty, but that doesn't mean that it won't be brilliant for a more formal, parlour-y sort of situation as well. So I think that's a really interesting thought that you do stand up Monty on the table.
Yeah, I think we actually filmed on my lecture. I think we filmed it. We didn't explain it, but I think we filmed it. So if anybody's got the routine and wants to see how I do it on the table with the extra jokes and the extra bits in the start of it, and it's a simplified version as well of the stand-up Monty. So it's took out any kind of really hard moves to do because I'm not a card guy by any means. Get the lecture, have a look at it, and you'll see. It'll take you a little while to get the grips, but because you'll have the cards, you'll know what's going on, and you could marry up the routines together, and you'll go, "Oh, that's what he's doing." You could probably figure out exactly how the routine's working, but it absolutely kills with the audiences. It really does. It's a really good table pleaser, that one.
Well, that does bring us to the tail end of your 8 tricks. So what did you put into number 7?
So 7, unfortunately, is another one of mine. And it's another one of these funny plots. So if you look at the sort of tricks I've named so far, we've got interactive plot, which is essentially Woody Harrigan, Toxic Plus. That's essentially a thing. Although with Toxic Plus, like I say, I do it as part of the queue. It's not really one of the tricks. It's like an extra thing, but that's an interactive plot. I like the prediction style of that as well. Master Prediction would get a sort of honorary recommendation too. But the plot I love most, and I don't know why, but I seem to make loads of these tricks, is the plot 1 in 5 plot. Because if you look at the 1 in 5 plot, it's essentially a bank night routine. It could be a Russian roulette routine, or it'd be a Kurisuke routine. And they're all essentially find the one thing in the 5 things, essentially. And I've got a bank night routine that I've got honorary mention on bank night routines, my Fisher 50, but the one, Yours, My Mystery, is brilliant as a sort of packs them all, plays big. Same with Russian roulette. Scott Alexander's Spike, you can't go wrong with that. Risk, you can't go wrong with that with the staple guns. But the one I would take with me 100% is my own, and it's Imposter. Purely because from that little tiny cardboard tube and the 5 sticks, I can get 15 minutes of lots of comedy, lots of interaction, and it's basically Max Maven's Kurisuke routine, just made smaller and easy to carry, but plays incredibly big. And I've had loads more humour to it now. It's just brilliant. So I do it. I mean, the routine's still very similar to Bane without Bane. I mean, they don't die in mine because yours are poisoned. I know when Matt first did the original sort of thing with Imposter, you used Bane as a of your own, which is a fantastic trick, by the way. If anybody's not got Bane, they should get it because it is a brilliant trick. And the props are so beautiful. I don't know how you managed to keep that to the price it was, to be honest. That's a miracle in itself, to be honest. Imposter, basically, we get 5 people up on stage. Well, actually, I get one person up on stage first. And I explained that by coming up on stage, they have essentially assigned themselves to be murdered. So I say to them, before they actually get killed, they can choose 5 people that they think in the audience would murder them. So there's lots of comedy there. They pick 5 shifty-looking people. They come on stage, and then I tell the person to die on stage. So that person, I say we sit them down because I don't like to get them lie down, but they die on stage. And then they get handed a really dodgy Oscar for overacting because they usually overact when they do it. And then from the 5 people that are on stage, the 5 proposed people, we each get them to take a stick. One of them has got a red dot on it. That's your murderer. And then from that, we get each of them have to do an evil laugh to show that they're the evil sort of villain because it's done like a lineup thing for police. Then they have to mime what dodgy weapon they use, and they're all got crazy weapons they could have used. And finally, they have to have a dodgy alibi. And then from that, we eliminate them down until we've got the one person that's a murderer. That's your conclusion, essentially. I don't do the prediction at the end because I think it's overkill. I don't think it's needed. But some people kind of feel like the idea of it. But just from that small place, big scenario, again, it can be done close up. It can be done stage. So yeah, it's just great. It's just a really good little trick. I'm very proud of Imposter. It took a year and a half of going through the most bizarre methods in the world. You'll know because you're a creator. Sometimes you overthink these things, don't you? And you go, oh, well, I'll do it this way. And then it's got some really convoluted methods. And I had several convoluted methods I went through for this thing, trying to keep to all the rules I had. And I got it down to 2. And I went to dinner with Tom Wright, who's a good friend of mine, who's been on here, and I gave him the final decision between the 2, and he went for the most simple one. He went, that one, it's the simplest method, and it works. Why wouldn't you not have that? So, and it's out the 2, he was right, because the one that he rejected wasn't as examinable, whereas this one is 100% examinable all the way through it. So, yeah, so Imposter would be in my 7th position. Which you probably have guessed those tricks up to now, but I don't think you'll guess the 8th one.
Yeah, Imposter is so good. I remember when I first saw it, I just thought it's just a great little idea. You know, it's that game when you were younger where you used to have to pull out the short straw. And, you know, it's used so often in public, everyday talk, you know, who pulled the short straw or you got the short straw. It's such a normal thing. So to bring out this prop of these straws, it almost feels like that game straight away. So it's instantly relatable to the audience, which I think is great.
It's funny you should say that because that was the code word for it for the 3 year and a half. It was called Short Straw. And it's funny because Craig, when he does a little thing on it, calls it Short Straw because he saw it very early on and he knew it then as Short Straw. And it did start out originally with that plot line because I always like to do any plot line that becomes a game or could be a game. I think it's brilliant. And it was originally that where you held the straws, and I wanted to, originally it was going to be they hold 5 straws in their hands, and one of them was short, and they'd pull it out, and then you'd guess who the short straw was. But then I realised if it's in your hand, you'd be able to feel it. So they're going to say it's going to have to feel it. So that meant it had to go in a tube, but then if it's in a tube, it can't be short because it would just drop down. So then it had to be a different coloured tip. So then if it's a different coloured tip and it's in the tube, then all these different things, the stages it went through, from being the shortest straw to being one with a different coloured end. So yeah, I love the fact that you've recognised that that's where it came from, because that is literally the genesis of that trick was the short straw game, and I still refer to it as short straw. The funny thing is, the name Imposter was actually the name of the book I'm writing, with all my tricks in it, because I suffer massively from imposter syndrome. So the book's actually called Imposter. And it was just because I needed a new name for it. And Craig went, "You need a new name for it. You can't call it Short Straw because it's not a short straw." And I went, "Right, okay, we'll call it the Imposter then because it's the Imposter stick." And that's so now I've got to change the name of my book. So and if you go to Vegas and you go to see the Conjurers show, the Cabinet of Wonders in Vegas, they're in New Orleans. Matthew Pomeroy and Tasha Lamb, fantastic couple. I worked with them on some of their show, and I built them an icon. One of my lottery tricks. It doesn't do the lottery. It has a big prediction at the end, which is, I won't explain it because I don't want to spoil it. But their icon's got loads of books on it, of antique different books, story books. And one of the books is Imposter, with the cover of the Imposter by me. I slipped in without telling them to see if they'd notice. And it was just an additional tile I put in. And they kept it in the show. And it's just a little nod to me, I guess. And during Magic Live, they were saying there was a lot of magicians that would come into the show and they would see Imposter by John Morton as a book and they'd be laughing to themselves because they knew what it was. But of course, the Muggles didn't. So they're the only ones that actually have the original book cover, but it's on their thing. That'll have to change there. So there you go. There's some useless information for you. That's where the name came from.
Well, you've already teased that we've got a strange thing in the 8th position, or a thing that we wouldn't associate with you. So what is in your final spot?
The 8th position is the red ball done, Abbott's ball, or whatever you want to call it, by Teller, that Teller does. So I have a love for this trick, and I've had a love for this trick ever since I got into magic. And I used to work on a routine. I haven't done it for a long, long time. But I used to have a routine. I still keep trying to dig out the footage of it, where no one's ever seen me perform it, but I had this box, little silver box. It was on like a stand, and the box would open up, and this little silver ball would float out the box and hover above the box. The box would open on its own. The ball would float out, hover there. And it would float towards me and backwards and forwards, and it would go through a ring and around and all sorts of things. And then eventually it would float back into the box, and the box would close itself. And no one's ever seen me perform it because it was one of those things I just did for myself. And if I was on a desert island and I've got all the time in the world, I would go back into that quite happily and just work for months on making that look realistic. And I've only ever seen Teller's red ball done on video. I've seen footage of it on video. It looks amazing. I just love it. I just think it's incredible. And yeah, all right, people are going to know. And if you go to the Penn and Teller show, they tell you it's just a ball on string, which is really annoying. But it doesn't look like it is. Even though you know that it's something like that, you cannot figure it. You can't see where the hookups are. You just can't figure it out. It's amazing. So yeah, for me, it would be the floating ball or Abbott's ball. I think it was its original name. I know that's one of the ones that gets mentioned a lot. And Teller's obviously taken it to the next level. I know he's worked on it for years and years and years. And a bit like me, it's one of his things that he could just quite happily drift away on and just do that for the rest of his life, and he'd probably be happy. And it's the same for me. It was either that or the dancing cane, actually. They were the other one that I would have done. And again, somebody mentioned this on your podcast a while back, that they would do the dancing cane as a sort of stress relief thing. And I find this doing the dancing cane is the same thing for me. I find it very stress relieving just to sit there and just play with it, essentially. So yeah, but the 8th position was just for me, whereas the other 7 were things that I literally do all the time.
So 2 questions for you.
Go on.
Well, no, one of them's not a question. So one of them was a comment, which was, Chris Harding mentioned about doing the dancing cane, and that he's never shown it to anyone. It's just something that he enjoys doing for himself to perfect. But my question for you, the same that I believe I said to him, why has no one ever seen you perform it, or why have you not introduced this into your act somehow?
Probably because it doesn't suit the character. That's why I don't have anything that looks magical in my working set, particularly because it takes away. Again, it goes back to this kind of like real or not real thing for me. if I'm doing, I know some people want to do magic and it wants to be like, I'm just doing magic to entertain you, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing to do, but that relies on the audience being able to sort of cast away their beliefs, if you like. They have to sort of choose to not to imagine, if you know what I mean. Whereas with the other stuff, with the mentalism side of stuff I do, there's that element of, well, is he doing this for real or isn't he doing this for real? I mean, you know the plot I'm working on at the moment, where I'm getting them to think of a card and they don't write it down and I tell them what the card is. I'm still playing without that plot and I'm getting more and more accurate by the minute. And there's nothing written down. They literally just think of a card and I can tell them what the card is. That, for me, that is essentially, we're doing what we always pretend to do, if you like. So if you do a magic trick, it either looks like you've got very, very good skills or you're doing some sort of comedy pantomime kind of scenario. If you're not careful, magic tricks can look like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen a lot of really good magicians where they do it and it just looks beautiful. And it's like, I mean, Eric Chen with his Fism act, for me, that's real magic. I can't even comprehend how half of that's done. And I don't really want to. I just want to enjoy the beauty of it. So I do enjoy watching magic. But it wouldn't suit my character for me to knock out the red ball after I've just read people's minds. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And also, I think the reason I've never shown it to anybody is I was never 100% happy with it. It was one of those things that it would have to be like, you'd have to do something truly incredibly different that was impossible to explain for me to probably show it to somebody. Maybe one day. We'll see. I don't know.
So far, it's a great list. We've gone all the way from Inside Out, then we went to a business card peek, then that figures 21st Century Phantom, Love Ritual, Stand Up Monte, but on the table, Imposter, and a floating ball routine. What a really diverse, interesting list of effects.
Thanks. Yeah, you can see what the tricks I work from that easily. It stands out, the ones that are my 1,000 sort of performance tricks. The red ball is the only sort of odd one in there. That's a bit sort of left field, I guess. But it's like I say, if I'm going to be stuck on an island, I want something I can play with and work on for years and years and years, and that will be the one that I could quite happily. I'd drift away and just be on my own and just do it. Yeah.
Well, that does bring us to your 2 curveball items. Now, of course, we've given you 8 choices for your tricks, but we're only giving you 1 book and 1 item. So what did you put in your book position?
This was a difficult one. And there's 2 books that I really like. And there's a third one that everybody should know about that I don't think people do. And it changed the way I perform. It's not the one I would take with me because I've read it and I know it really well, but it's Magic and Showmanship by Henning Helms. I've probably just butchered his name big time, but Magic and Showmanship, it's about £14. You get it at Garzam, and he talks about it's all theory. There's no tricks in there. It's all about performance and how to perform and how to entertain. And the biggest thing I took from that book was try and make every performance into a game because it's more engaging and it's more entertaining for the crowd. And he's 100% right, without a shadow of a doubt. It's if you have a trick, if you look at all the tricks that you ever perform for anybody, the ones that are interactive and feel almost like they're a game, they're the ones that will probably play better to your audience than anything else. And I got that from one of the chapters in that book, Magic and Showmanship, Henning Helms. Definitely get it. I highly recommend it. If somebody wants to improve the way they perform, it's very, very cheap, but it's got some real gold in it. But it's not the book I take with me. The other honorary mention would be The Burglars Effects, because it sits in my workshop. It's signed by the man himself to me, because it was one of the first ones that came out. And it's in cling film, and I've opened it twice. So I'd love to sit and read through that. I know when I have the time, because I know there's gold in there that I should not be buying tricks. I should just be reading his book. And the other one is Darren Brown's, which again, Notes from a Fellow Traveller, which I know has been mentioned a million times on your thing. And it's probably Darren's book that I would take with me, purely because I really struggle to read from books. And the way Darren writes in this casual, informal style, it's almost like having a conversation with him. And it makes me want to read the book. Whereas if it's a book that's just trick after trick after trick after trick, I'm bored after 5 minutes. I haven't got the attention span for it. Or it'll send me to sleep. But with Darren's, it's almost like you sat in a room just having a chat. And because he puts witty comments in it, it's how I'm trying to write my book a little bit. So it's got that kind of humour to it. And like a conversation, it's brilliant. And obviously it's got some real gold in there. So I'm not all the way through it yet. I've still got loads more to go through it. But even from just the sort of first couple of chapters, I've already got my money's worth. So yeah, I probably wouldn't take the one I've got that's mine because it's signed by him. So I'd probably get one that I can afford to get wet. But it would be Darren Brown's Notes from a Fellow Traveller. I'm really sorry for being boring and picking one that everybody's picked, which is why I'd go for one that I thought I'd do an honorary mention, one that people probably don't know about. But yeah, it would be Darren Brown book, I'm afraid.
Not boring at all. I think it's a great choice. And the thing is, if we do get lots of one thing on here, it just goes to show that one thing is something that, you know, people who don't have that thing should be paying attention to. That's all that is. And you're absolutely right. It's such a phenomenal book. And he does have that sort of conversational thing. It does feel like you're reading a diary. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like I could imagine maybe the day after, when he had processed whatever had happened that he was about to write about, he was sitting down and he was almost spilling all of these thoughts out from his mind onto the page. But it was almost like he was writing a diary for himself to read back at the end.
Yeah, it's such a relaxed style. His other books as well, I mean, Pure Effect, they've got some little quips and things in there as well, which are sort of like, where he's just put in there and it just makes you laugh. So his writing style is really nice like that. It's very relaxed. Even the Happy book, again, it's just a joy to sort of read, if you know what I mean. All his books, his writing style for me is really what makes a difference. So it's interesting, out of the 3 books there, all of them actually have more method in them, which is more what I'm interested in, is the actual performance method as opposed to tricks method. I think we've all got a million tricks we don't need. I know it's been said a million times, but it's true. We don't need any more tricks. What we do need is how to improve the performance and the way we do it. So, yeah, definitely that's important. I think people don't take enough interest in that they should.
Yep, I agree 100%. And it does bring us to your items. So what did you put in your item position?
So this is a really hard one for me. If I had my way, I would take my workshop with me. But you're not going to let me do that. I know you're not. I could spend hours with my workshop and just create magic all the time. But I couldn't do it with just one bit out of my workshop. So I know you're not going to let me have that. So in the absence of my workshop, it would be my Dungeons and Dragons dice bag, which is a bit of a weird one, I know. So it's a little tiny bag. You can buy these on Etsy. They are like a drawstring bag. They come in a million different colours. I've got I think mine's just a black sort of suede one with a grey lining. I've got 2 of them. I've got one in my normal case and one in my backup case. And it will hold everything in that little bag that I would put into my jacket pockets. So in the summertime, when it's razor hot, I just wear a trousers and waistcoat and a nice shirt, obviously. And I carry that little bag with me. And it took me ages and ages to find a bag that I could carry with me that didn't look like a handbag, because obviously I'm a guy and I didn't want to have a handbag. Not there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, I didn't want a handbag. But likewise, I didn't want one of these kind of leather folio things, because that felt like a briefcase. I've already got a nice doctor's bag for when I walk in the place. This is something that literally just takes all the bulk out that would not have been in my normal jacket pocket, and it goes in this one little bag. So you can't overfill it. You can't put a million tricks in there that you'll never use. It literally just has the things I'm going to use in it. So that means when I'm set up at a gig, I have my inside out cube in one waistcoat pocket. I have a business card peak in the other side pocket, and everything else, the Lego deck, a normal deck of cards. I have Hollywood in there. I've got a load of Sharpies in there, double cross and whatever are in there. Everything else goes in that one bag. And it means that if it's red hot, I don't have to be there sweating my nuts off essentially because I've got the three-piece suit on and it's razor sun on top of me and I'm burning up. Because nobody likes a sweaty magician. And when you get over the fact that you carried a little bag with you, and it just clips on the back of my belt, so I can have my hands free and it's not even there. If I walk up to the table, I hook it on the chair, or sometimes I'll just put it on the table. And the biggest comment you get normally, if you're going to get any funny comments about it, is like, "Is that your magic bag?" And I go, "Yep, yep. The rabbits are on the third floor down," because it looks a bit like the Hermione bag that she has in Harry Potter that has like a million things in it. It looks a bit like that. It opens up and it'll stay open. It's got like a square flat bottom. You could easily get in there if you wanted to. If you just put decks of cards in there, you could probably get 6 decks of cards in there, I would say. Not that you would, but you could. And even if I'm wearing a suit jacket now, I don't have anything in the suit jacket. I just carry the bag. I've got that used to doing it now. I've had it for about 2 years, maybe longer than that now. And it is a godsend. And I've recommended it to a few other magicians over the years, and some have took it on and some haven't. If you get your head around the fact that you're not got your pockets, it's in the bag, you won't go back. You won't go back, I tell you now. It frees you up completely because you don't have to have the jacket anymore. And you can have your sleeves rolled up so I can do tricks. They can see there's nothing up my sleeve because I've got no sleeves. So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons dice bag. You get them from Etsy. Mine's from somebody called Cottontail Kate or Kite or something like that. But just look up Dungeons and Dragons dice bags. They even come with little section pockets if you want. Mine hasn't, but you can get them like that. So yeah, there you go.
It's definitely not one that we've had before, and probably not one we'd have until everyone now Googles it, which everyone is going to be doing after this. I'll be honest, I Googled it whilst you were talking. I had to see what it looked like. But yeah, that's a great shout. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it took me forever to find a bag that would looks all right. You can get access in and out of quickly. And because of the cord, you can just literally, it's got a toggle on it that can close it. You just took that toggle underneath your belt and it holds it in place. So you've got your hands free. You can walk around like it's nothing. It's just there on the back of your belt. But when you've got it, you just take it out and you've got access to everything you would have had in your pockets, but you're not all bulked up. There's no bulk there. I mean, I'm a chubby guy anyway, so the last thing I need is more bulk. But it's just really handy for that. And in the summertime, it's a godsend because you're not getting all hot and sweaty.
Well, it's a great choice and a great list. Now, if people want to find out more about you, John, where can they go?
So if they want to get in touch with me personally on anything, get hold of me via Facebook Messenger is the easiest way. Find me on Facebook, get hold of me on Facebook Messenger. Don't try and add me as a friend. Shoot me a message first because I get loads of requests as friends and half of them I don't know. So it's only if I've got a bunch of friends that mutual add you. Unless I've spoken to you. If I've spoken to you and I know who you are, then I'll add you. You can email me, but I wouldn't bother because I'm rubbish at answering emails back. I get so many these days. It's difficult to sort of like keep up with them. So the quickest way is just message me online or Facebook. If you want to look at the products I have, custommagic.co.uk is my products page. You can't buy anything from it. It's like a showroom site, I guess. But you have to still message me because it's all about customer service in my head. And that's about it, really. You know, I've got Twitter and I've got Instagram, but I hardly put anything on it because I'm an old fart who doesn't understand these things, and my life's not interested enough to know what I'm eating every day and put pictures on it. I don't do that kind of stuff. So even on the Custom Magic Facebook group, I only put stuff on there if it's something I think is worthy for people to see that I've created. You know, I don't send millions of mail shots out to people. It's not my thing. You know, I'm rubbish at business is basically what I'm saying. I'm rubbish at business.
And you do have something coming up on Unlimited soon as well, which is very exciting.
Can't wait. I keep checking on Unlimited to see when it's on. I really can't wait to see the reactions. Just a little shout out, actually. If anybody's seen my academy already and they like it, please leave a review, because it's interesting to see what people say. So far, they're all nice reviews, which is nice. So hopefully I'll carry on. Probably just doing myself now to some lower ratings, but it's always nice to know that people actually like what I've put on there, because I did put a lot of work and heart and soul into it, and it is literally my working set. And there is something on there for everybody, so I'm hoping people like it, and I really hope they like the thing on Unlimited, because that's still from part of the button box show that I'm building. So yeah, it was fun. That I really enjoyed it, and thank you and Harry for being there when I did the lecture. It was you really made me feel at home, so I really do appreciate that. And it's nice to know you still haven't opened the coffin I gave you.
I still haven't opened the coffin. No one's going to understand what that means while listening to this. But that was, it's a great, great trick. Do check it out. It probably won't be on Unlimited until 2025 now.
Oh, there you go. You see, there's a teaser.
There's a teaser, but it's well worth it. You'll understand when you see it. It's a phenomenal routine. But all that's left for me to say, John, is thank you so much for giving us your list and giving us your time.
My pleasure. No, thank you for having me. I love this podcast. It's one of my favourite podcasts, if not my favourite, actually. I just do it religiously. I really like the ones midweek as well, because there's some little gold nuggets on there that you go, well, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, they're quite diverse, aren't they? The Stranded with the Strangers.
Yeah, really, really good. And it shows what people are doing. And a lot of the time, there's stuff on there that you've never heard of. You know, because it's not the latest thing. It's something that people have worked. So that's really important, I think.
Well, now we finally have your list, which is great as well, because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, thank you for all the good work, mate. Thank you for doing this.
And of course, if you guys do want to be a part of one of those ones that John was just on about, it's called Stranded with a Stranger. It goes out every Monday. Then send in your list of 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item to sales@alakazam.co.uk. In the subject line, put my Desert Island list. That way it comes through to me and I can get one of them recorded. Of course, the more of them that we get, the more we can record. So with that being said, we'll be back next week with a Stranded with a Stranger and a Desert Island tricks. Until then, have a great week.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.